Hello, and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. My name is Serge. Joining me today, I've got a Nelly.
Hey, I'm here.
We got a Wheeler.
What up?
And we got a James on tech.
You called on me, I'm sorry.
Reminder that everything we do is brought to you by you, the support of the Patreon, over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Hello, and welcome to part one of our Outlaws of Thunder Junction set review. Today, we're going to be covering white, blue, and black cards. A reminder that our set reviews are not exhaustive. We do not talk about every single card, just the ones that we think are neat, worth talking about, or the ones that we think we're going to get a lot of comments, so we try and get in front of those. In addition to the main set, we also have handpicked a couple of the commander cards, and also cards from the... What is it called?
The Big Score.
Big score.
The Big Score, because they're like thieving in the Thunder Junction or whatever?
So you remember how there was March of the Machine Aftermath?
Kind of?
Yeah, well, that's why there's Big Score.
Like
you only kind of
lore-wise?
remember... Well, no, it's because you only kind of remember Aftermath.
Okay.
And they thought, wow, we're not going to make money off of this. So they shoved it into the main set.
Okay.
But with the weird set
And that's
symbol.
good?
Yeah, they kept the SEP symbol, so we have to have this discussion.
Is it good?
All right, maybe that's not for us to discuss. Should we just get right into it, I suppose?
Sure, why not?
Wheeler, start us off.
All right, so the first card is Even Interrupter. 1 white for a 2/2 bird rogue with flash and flying. When Even Interrupter enters the battlefield, exile target spell. It becomes plotted. Plot and cards that are plotted, it's a new mechanic in the set. Basically, you normally pay a plot cost and you exile the card face up from your hand at sorcery speed. And then on a later turn, you can cast that card at sorcery speed without paying its mana cost. So ETB exiles a spell and it becomes plotted. Then spells your opponents cast from graveyards or from exile cost 2 more to cast. So already we just have a flash 2/2 flyer that says, oh, you invested mana in a spell? No. Get away. And if you are targeting a counter spell, because plotted cards can only be cast at sorcery speed, you've effectively just exiled their counter spell. If you, for whatever reason, want to target your own card on the stack, you are not beholding to... Where am I going with this?
You don't have to.
You don't have to. You don't have to pay the additional 2.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. I was about to ask thee thine questions 3.
You're thinking like that old play line of like remanding your own spell in a counter battle sort of thing. Like you can save one of your things, hypothetically.
Right. The exile effect hits any spell, so you can use it on your own or your opponents. But the restriction when opponents cast spells from graveyards or exile only hits your opponents, which is just a reasonable piece of hate. Like it already means that the plotted spell, if they're going to cast it, they still have to put some amount of mana into it. And then just randomly giving the middle finger to Underworld Breach decks and Yawgmoth Will and...
I mean, even just Snapcaster.
Even just Snapcaster.
Yeah, like quick question here, anyone can answer. Would we still be talking about this card if it didn't have that third ability that exiles a spell? Like maybe, right?
Maybe.
I like it in white. It's a cool ability.
Oh yeah, no, I think this card is like fantastic and pushed. I just think the fourth ability that restricts graveyard decks from casting spells or casting spells from exile is like kind of strong on its own.
Yes. I mean, the fact that you said, I think the fourth ability on this rare creature that costs 3 or less already kind of just says, hey, it's probably good and playable.
Watch out.
Would recommend this card.
All right, let's move on. Nelly.
It's time to talk about Claim Jumper. 2 and a white for a 3/3 rabbit mercenary. Not a rabid mercenary. We'll talk about those later. With vigilance, and when Claim Jumper enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search for a Plains card and put it onto the battlefield tap. Doesn't say basic. Then, if an opponent controls more lands than you, repeat this process once. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So... ability to catch you up, kind of very similar to Knight of the White Orchid, but this is on a 3/3 for 3 vigilance with, let's do it, Ancient Tomb mana, and it can then Knight of the White Orchid trigger a second time if you're still behind. So anytime you're playing Weathered Wayfarer, probably you'll consider playing this at least because it's in the same colors. You're not going to find your Strip Mine or your Wasteland or your Dark Depths with this, but you are getting lands on the battlefield and having a perfectly fine creature on rate. Plus, Wheeler's going to put it in pretty much every place it possibly could ever go in because it's a rabbit.
It is a playable rabbit.
Right, it has another creature type that matters too. Like, I'm not sure how much, but Mercenary is on
Part of
other
the
cards.
Outlaw now, right?
Well, yeah, but plus there's like the old Tutor Up a Mercenary cards.
The
from
rebels
Masks.
are usually the ones you want to find.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, who knows? Caterin Summons. 1 mana, find a Mercenary.
Caterin Summons already has gone up in price by 3,000%, right?
Finding a Surveil land off this is already just like
Yeah.
so clutch.
So juicy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Surveil land's pretty good.
Turns out there are increasingly more ETB tapped lands that are
Yeah.
in our decks.
So my opinion on this card, solid playable. I don't assume it's going to immediately find a home in Death and Taxes, the sort of like main white creatures deck, but I could see it in anything that has balance in Zern Orb.
Oh, Jesus. All right, next up, we have the Dust Animus. This is a 2 mana 2/3 spirit for 1 and a white. It has flying. If you control 5 or more untapped lands, it enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters and a lifelink counter on it, and it has plot for 1 and a white. So you can kind of set it aside and wait till you have more mana. Now, one of the neat things about plot is I think a lot of people, when they hear later turn, they think the next turn. You can just let it cook. You can just let it sit there until it lines up. So if you're wanting to be as mana efficient as possible, but you want to get value off of the 5 or more untapped lands, that helps a lot. But this card is great. It is good early because it's a 2/3 flyer for 2. And late game, if you draw it, it's amazing. And somewhere in between, you can just be mana efficient and cook it and set it aside. There's not a lot of discussion to be had here because it's just a flying idiot, but
The floor is it's a 2 mana 2/3 flyer with like a relevant creature type.
yeah.
Kind of wild.
All right, Wheeler.
Final showdown. Do 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 do. White.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Do
Hey, remember at the beginning of the show when we're like,
yeah,
this
I know.
is a long one. Let's keep it brisk.
Sing it, James.
It's the final showdown. So this is a card with Spree. For the folks watching the video version of this, you'll notice that there is a small plus sign in the top right corner next to the single white mana cost. This is an instant with Spree, which is choose 1 or more additional costs. So Spree cards have an initial cost that you always have to pay, and then a series of modes. And you can pick any number of those, but you have to pick at least one, and obviously there's a cost for every mode that you select. It's a combination escalate, multi-kicker, sandwich together. So Final Showdown, the starting cost is a white, +1 generic mana. All creatures lose all abilities until end of turn. +1 generic mana. Choose a creature you control. It gains indestructible until end of turn. +3 generic mana, white. Destroy all creatures. So this is a card that is technically an instant speed Wrath of God. And an instant speed Wrath of God that can also potentially protect all of your own creature, or protect your best creature. Or muck all of your opponent's creatures' abilities and then blow them up and they don't get any death triggers or whatever. You could also just pay 2 mana to remove all abilities from from every creature, but you're primarily using that mode if you're trying to muck your opponent's creatures, if they're on like creature combo, or you pay 2 mana to make one of your things indestructible. There's the thing about these Spree cards is that they're flexible. Mm-hmm. They're modal cards.
I did die to a Thrun the Last Troll the other day.
There you go.
There you go.
Dress that Thrun down.
And there are 2 main things Magic players will do when they're evaluating cards like this. They are going to first undervalue flexibility. They are going to think that a card like this, because it's 6 mana instant speed to Wrath, which is the most appealing part, that that's bad. When really they should think, well, it's not always Wrath. There are a bunch of different things you can do. This is so many different cards in one. The second thing Magic players do is they overvalue flexibility. They look at cards like this and they assume that like, oh, well, this lets me do everything. I get so many options. When really, they just need a hammer. You don't need a specific tool. You need a big hammer to smash the board. Like, this card is too cute for me. It's too expensive. If you're playing a Wrath, don't get tricky. Play Terminus
Don't
or
get cute with
Supreme
it,
Verdict. Yeah, don't get cute. Not to mention the other flexible abilities don't actually check some of the things that Dress Down deals with, because this only hits the creatures that are in play at this time. So you can't get Thassa's Oracle with this card the same way that Dress Down can, which is pretty important. You can still muck Karnstructs and whatnot, but you don't get the Thassa's Oracle, you don't get to draw a card, and you can't pitch this card to Force Will.
All right.
Okay.
Well said. Nelly, you're up.
Let's talk about High Noon. It's 1 and a white for an enchantment. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. And 4 and a red, sacrifice High Noon. It deals 5 damage to any target. Okay, so interesting new take on the rule of law kind of world of enchantments. We have seen one that's only 1 white mana, I believe, from one of the Eldraine.
Silence.
Deafening Silence, thank you. So Deafening Silence gives you that like Storm Hate in white for only 1 mana. But this card actually has a second function where you can play it in your, the reality of playing Canadian Highlander. We don't play with sideboards. So having pieces that can deal with certain decks kind of, brutally, like the blunt object to kind of color hose or particularly hate on one kind of deck can be useful. But against other matches, it still has to do something. So I'm thinking like similarly to Archon of Emeria, you can just attack your opponent even if they're not troubled about only casting 1 spell per turn. I'm not like crazy impressed with this one. 5 mana to turn it into a removal spell is asking a lot. But if you want an anti-storm hate piece that doesn't die to lightning bolt and also does another thing, I don't know that there is another card in the entire game that does that for you. So here you go. This is it. They made it.
Yeah, well said.
I would rather play Archon, but go for it.
Yeah, any of the creatures with that printed on it, 100%.
Sure. Yeah, there's a few. Like there's also a 1/4 for 3.
There's
that's
the
enchantment.
Phyrexian 3/3 that came out.
That one too. Yeah, you can attack with all those other ones. You can't attack with this one. Yeah. I mean, you can pay full retail +2 for Lava Axe with this one. That's cool. It does go face. Catch. I mean, it's also like a Lava Axe you can get back with Sun Titan kind of triggers. So like maybe someone will care about that. Doing my best for you, High Noon here.
Right.
Yeah, don't play this card.
All right, next up we have the Nurturing Pixie. This is a 1 mana 1/1 fairy rogue. It has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target non-fairy, non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If a permanent was returned this way, put a +1/+1 counter onto it.
You're telling me Core Skyfisher costs 1 mana now?
So not just, when I...
Oh, non-land. It says non-land.
I made a big return to Magic around the time of like Future Sight and the White Mane Lion. White Mane Lion was a card I absolutely loved. And similar to White Mane Lion, this is non-conditional. You have to return something to your hand, which can make sequencing a little bit tricky. Is there a May I'm missing?
This is up to.
It's up to?
Up to.
Oh, I like this card way better. I was like medium on this, and Wheeler's like, but it's a 2 mana 1/1 flyer, and that's really quite good. And I was like, I don't love it.
1 mana 2/2.
1 mana 2/2 flyer. Sorry, the
Yeah.
numbers were right. The orders were backwards, much like my understanding of missing the word up to that I said out loud.
Let's be real here. This is like part of your like turn 1 sequence where you recast your mocks.
Yeah. Seems solid. Reset a creature with an ETB, bounce your Stoneforge Mystic. Yeah. Okay, no, this has no downside. I thought this had a pretty significant downside, but it seems to be all upside.
Even just vigilance. Like, there's an underrated play pattern of like attack with a creature, play this to bring it back, play it untapped, and now they can't attack or their attack sucks. Like, there's just a lot of play patterns with this card. and it's 1 mana.
Can't take the initiative back. Just bounce your initiative creature, recast your initiative creature.
Honestly, play patterns late game of like Recruiter of the Guard for this, return Recruiter of the Guard for
something else.
Something
Oh my
else.
God.
And then you
For
just go,
core Skyfisher.
This is the poor man's ephemerate.
yeah.
Yeah. Ephemerate that attacks for 2.
Oh man. All right. I'm sold. All right, Wheeler, take us home. Last white card.
From the big score, it's Old Tech Matter Weaver. 2 and a white for a 2/4 human artificer. It says whenever you cast a creature spell, you choose 1. Create a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token, or create a token that's a copy of target artifact token you control. I've been thinking about this card a lot. One of the strengths of some of the other creatures that make new creatures, like Psymaster Thopterist, or, I mean, Saheeli's not a creature, but sure, Saheeli, or even Young Pyro, or Third Path Iconoclast is a better example, is that they all make creatures out of garbage. So, like, you cast your Mishra's Bauble, and that Mishra's Bauble now brings along, like, a real card.
Like a Thopter.
Yeah. And then you cash in that Bauble or whatever that cheap card you played, and you get some kind of value, or it provides something. So you're basically getting free value off of cards that your opponent doesn't really trade with favorably. But if you're including creatures in your deck, they're probably going to be pretty good. And so this card asks that you have it in play and that you further commit to the board in order to further commit to the board, right? Like you build an army by playing more creatures, which is kind of appealing, but I'm a little worried about like where this sees play. The blue-white artifact mid-range E-deck is
Literally what I was going to suggest.
gotta be...
I think that's the only home for it.
Yeah, because making artifact tokens and artifact creatures is still quite good. Having Ancient Tomb mana, still quite good. Surviving Lightning Bolt. And then also later on, you got a Construct in play. Now you got more Constructs in play. And that's pretty powerful. So I think this is kind of in that territory of it's not as ubiquitous as some of the other similar cards, but there is at least a pre-existing home where it will hopefully do something fantastic for that
Like
archetype.
this and Oswald Fiddlebender are besties.
Oh,
right?
you're going to bend so much, so many fiddles. Like the fact that it makes things that can die to Skull Clamp is honestly just enough.
All right, Nelly, start us off with blue.
We've got Archmage's Newt, our first blue card. For 1 and a blue, a 2/2. Apparently that's new, I was reading on Twitter. Just 1 and a blue for a 2/2 has never been done before. Unless that's a weird downside.
With upside.
With upside. With upside.
We've never had a grizzly bear in blue with upside.
Right. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. They're always making you pay a little bit more,
They're
or
always
like giving you
1/3s or 2/1s
sketchy.
or
Yeah, like
something.
Phantasmal Bear exists, but that doesn't count. Yeah. Anyways, it's a 2/2 with this ability. Whenever Archmage's Newt deals combat damage to a player, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. That card gains flashback 0 until end of turn instead if Archmage's Newt is saddled, and it has Saddle 3. Saddle is a new ability appearing in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It's a bit similar to Crew and Enlist. Basically, you can saddle anytime a sorcery by tapping any number of creatures with power equal to the saddle number or more, or more power. And then now it's saddled. And then the cards all say what they do when they're saddled. This one, if it deals combat damage to a player while saddled, you get to cast a spell for free from your graveyard.
You can only saddle at sorcery speed?
Yeah.
Yep.
Really? Unlike
not-
Crew, you can't saddle in response.
That's right. You're not saddling on block. You're not saddling on their turn. It's
interesting.
only sorcery speed. Yeah. And then but they almost, I think they all do have some kind of like, if it attacks when saddled or deals combat damage when saddled, all those things matter for your turn. So that's what saddle does. It's a bit like vehicles, except they're always a creature. Like this is a creature, even if you don't saddle it. It's always a 2/2. I'm excited about this card. You have to like on hit a player, but it only has 2 power, so I don't know, like sometimes it matters, like you give it Skulk with the ring or whatever, like whatever your fancy way is of giving this thing evasion, or just burning all their creatures, play some sort of Grixis 2-for-1s and make sure they don't have blockers, and now this thing gets you value. But like the floor again is the 2/2-for-2, so like it's okay if it doesn't work every game. Right?
Yeah.
Like
think
this thing seems fine. I don't know if I like it as much as Mercurial Spelldancer.
Well, this set is doing some really interesting stuff for blue-red spells. Like the old school kind of tempo pyromancer style build. There's a lot of cards that care about like double spelling in a turn.
Right.
And so play pattern of like lightning bolt, attack with this, lightning bolt, Dreadhorde Arcanist style play patterns. I don't know. It's not, I mean, I think the easiest comparison is going to be Snapcaster Mage, but without being able to, rehat your counter spells, which Snapcaster Mage is really good for, is that flexibility, but like proactive, or this in like a bug shell with, Time Walk and Hand Attack and Thoughtseize could also be really spicy too. Maybe replay a ramp spell. I don't know.
I guess if you're already playing Dreadhorde Arcanist, this seems like a good include.
Yeah, it's hard. So this is a kind of card where people will look at it and like overthink like what you're supposed to be doing with it.
Sure.
Like I think when you said like if it doesn't work out, who cares? You paid 2 mana for it. And like that's kind of just the way you should approach some of these cards. Is it's not the end of the world. You paid 2 mana for like a proactive threat. It got answered. You move on with your life.
Yeah,
I mean,
fine.
I'm just remembering games where like you beat me to death with a Trinket Mage.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Right? Like,
Now I am too. Trinket Mage is a 2 and a blue for it.
God, yeah.
all right. Next up, we've got Duelist of the Mind. Now, this is much like Snapcaster Mage, much like Bob. What the invitational cards? What is this called?
Well, yeah, that's right. They're invitational winners. I don't know if they have any. Like, you used to call them invitational winner cards. Now
but
they're
now they're
world
just world
champion.
champion.
The
Yeah,
World Champion
so-
cards, and like the white flyer that we had a couple sets ago
Elite
too.
That's right.
Spellbinder.
Elite Spellbinder.
Elite Spellbender. So this is the same sort of thing. This is a
Rakdos
card.
Augur Mage.
No.
This is a card that was made in collaboration between a world champion and Wizards of the Coast.
Yes.
And I was talking to Wheeler about this earlier. These cards are always good. It's very rare for them to not be solid.
Nowadays.
Nowadays, pardon me.
Weirdly, from today's perspective, Sylvan Safekeeper is good.
Yeah.
So this is a 2-mana X3 Human Advisor for 1 and a blue. It has flying and vigilance, and its power is equal to the number of cards that you've drawn this turn. Whenever you commit a crime, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So on your opponent's turn, it's 0/3 flying vigilance. On your turn, it's almost always going to be a 1/3 flying with vigilance. And that's the floor. And just, it seems really, really, really strong after that. Like imagine a world of Brainstorm, of Sylvan Library, of any cantrip, or even just like Wasteland cantrip, Hand Attack cantrip. I think this card is going to shine when paired with cards like Ledger Shredder, which is another 2-mana 1/3 flyer, and the same sort of thing. I don't know. I think it's very flexible. It's very powerful, and it could very quickly get out of control. Not like a growth threat like Ledger Threader, but just on some of those big turns. You play a couple of cantrips and suddenly you're hitting for like 4 in the air is pretty spooky. And it has vigilance. Beep, beep.
I think the Ledger Shredder comparison is valid because although Ledger Shredder just slowly gets bigger with those +1/+1 counters, this card is just like going to maybe attack for 4 sometimes in the early turns, but then later in the game when you found your Sylvan Library or your Jace, whatever it is, like we play like permanents that constantly give us more value in the later turns. They're more mana. So if you still have this thing around, as long as you had a Ledger Shredder around that turned into a 4/6, like this thing will also be attacking for 4 on average, probably more often.
Love it. Wheeler.
Why, if it isn't from the big score, my preview card for Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
Ooh.
It's Esoteric Duplicator. 2 and a blue for an artifact clue. Whenever you sacrifice Esoteric Duplicator or another artifact, you can pay 2 generic. If you do, at the beginning of the next end step, you create a token that's a copy of that artifact. Then you can also pay 2 to sacrifice the Duplicator to draw a card. Importantly, this does not say non-token anywhere. This also doesn't say exile. It's just missing certain words on it. There is a real cost of playing it, right? Like paying 2 generic every time you sack an artifact, and it has to be sacrificed. That's important.
It's not like if they disenchant your stuff, you get value or whatever.
Yeah. But, I mean, Krug Clan Ironworks exists. Spell bombs are just pretty good. Welder decks are a thing.
Wait, is there a deck where you just play a bunch of artifacts that you sacrifice from play for value?
Is this an egg?
No, this is closer to a nut than an egg. It is very funny that this also Mindslaver locks people. I've been thinking about that.
Oh,
They're both in the same set.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
It's the same. Is it one cheaper? Because what's our normal number for Mindslaver lock? It's like 13, right?
Well, you also have to...
Yes, this is only 12.
It's the 3 mana to activate the land and put it back on top,
because
right?
the ruins cost
the
2
old
and tap
Mindslaver
it.
lock is 12 or 13.
Yeah.
This is just 6.
So for people who don't know what it is...
You don't have to pay to...
They may not have been playing Magic since, in 2018 when we were Mindslaver locking each other. Nelly, introduce the Mindslaver lock really quick.
Real quick, it's a legendary artifact from Mirrodin. 6 to cast, which importantly you don't have to pay this time around the loop, so it's way cheaper. 4 to activate. It just has 1 activated ability. Pay 4, tap, sacrifice Mindslaver. You control target player during that player's next turn. And we got up the version from Scars of Mirrodin when they reprinted it.
Very nice, James.
Thank you, James. And yeah, controlling target player during their next turn already can be backbreaking if like they're just tapped and then you untap and they have removal spells for their own stuff. But
like
typically,
Zern Orb, all their own lands.
exactly, something like there's lots of ways you can wreck someone to completely lose the game in one turn of just using their own resources against them. But often we put it into decks where we're going to recur it somehow, typically with it's not called Tolarian Ruins.
Academy
Tolarian
Ruins.
Academy.
Academy Ruins.
I mean, there's probably a Tolarian Academy
Sure,
involved.
yeah.
There's probably Tolarian Academy in the deck, but
Yeah.
Academy Ruins, which is a land, a legendary land that just says tap for a colorless or 1 and a blue and tap it. Put target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. So then with 13 mana, you can take all of
low price of 13 mana.
You can take all of your opponent's turns, which please tell me you can figure out how that wins you the game, because I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
But now
With
Esoteric
you can use
Duplicator.
You could use the duplicator. I think it's important when we're looking at a card like this that normally you shouldn't play bad cards to make broken cards better.
That's
and
fair.
like Krug Clan Ironworks is not a real Magic card. That is just it defies the laws of the game.
Sure.
But this card isn't entirely reliant on KCI. And also, artifacts kind of just hear that statement and go, shut up. Doesn't matter. I got a Tolarian Academy. I have so much goddamn mana. I'll do whatever the hell I want. Thank you very much.
The archetype is like the garbage cards archetype, right?
Yeah.
Like it is the place in deck building where you get away with playing the worst cards the most.
Not to mention, like, there are some decks that just really cannot get out from under sacrifice Aether Spellbomb, bounce your creature every turn.
Sure.
Like that's not nothing. Especially if you're ticking away with like a Baleful Strix or an Oni Cult Anvil making tokens. Like,
I got an important question here. On a scale of 1 to like Rings of Bright Hearth, where do you put this? Like, is this cracked in half gonna like make a bunch of new loops and combos like Rings sort of does, or is that way too high of an evaluation for this card?
it's not Rings. It's more of a Rings is I'm going to combo kill you and oops, I just generate a bunch of weird advantage off my fetch lands and whatever. This is I'm going to generate a whole bunch of advantage into oops, I just locked you out of the game. So it's similar, but it almost takes like a flip on your average Rings of Bright Hearth experience.
To me, this just looks like Rings, where if you don't have the piece to combo with it, you can gash it in for a card.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Rings, right?
That's not nothing, right?
Yeah.
You could just pay 4 mana to sack it, draw a card, and make another copy of it.
Sure, or you could just pay 5 mana to cycle it, like worst case scenario, which again,
I
Rings
just
can't do.
realized if you have infinite mana, this draws your whole deck.
Well, you get it at the end step.
Oh, right.
So there is a like.
Right. Sorry,
yeah.
you're right. You're correct.
They
It's
stopped us from having too much.
Similarly,
Sorry.
it's not just second Bomberman where you
Yeah.
can sack the Lotus, pay 2, get the Lotus
I mean,
back
with Black
immediately.
Lotus and this, though, infinite money glitch. You just crack for 3 blue and pay 2 of it to make a copy on end step, and you got 1 floating.
That's right. Every turn you get a floating mana.
And if they're locked out of the game with Mind Slayer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not nothing. That Lotus is in your graveyard now. You've done stuff. Yeah.
All right. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Nelly, you're up.
I want to talk about Geralf the Flesh Right. 2 and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human warlock with whenever you cast a spell during your turn other than your first spell that turn, create a 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature token. So not your first spell, but your second and subsequent spells throughout your turn, making 2/2s. And whenever a zombie enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each other zombie that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. So this is like kind of a blue Monastery Mentor that works better in like decks that want to be just storming off anyway. I don't know. I don't play Monastery Mentor in Storm already, but I mean, this one makes huge honking idiots that just stick around.
God,
and I'm
I love
like,
the phrase "huge honking idiots."
like if you storm 5, you get what? Like you get a 4/4 and a 3/3 and a 2/2 or something, right? Or then also a 5/5. I haven't done the math ever, but I could see maybe trying this. If I had a blue splash version of my like mono black storm, the zombies matter.
I love that you're going to Storm with this because I just think of like Pop and Stitcher.
Okay.
I mean,
Tell me.
well, I want to make blue black zombies now.
Okay.
And I don't think you need a turn where you cast like 5 spells. I think you just need to double spell like a couple of turns, and then you've just got this really sick generator. And if your second spell is also a zombie, you're
Right.
getting the zombie token and a +1/+1 count on the other zombie. And unlike a lot of lords, which if you kill the lord, they go away, those counters are forever.
Yeah, slamming this in Kindred Zombies seems smart. I'm just not sure if there's immediately a home for this where it like really shines, or maybe I should be taking the same approach I took with the Salamander, where it's like, yeah, you get a 2/3, and then if you cast 2 spells, you get a 2/2.
Don't overthink it. Just play
Sure.
this card with Mental Note and Mishra's Bauble and Duress. Play this card with cheap spells and make a bunch of idiots.
Okay, great.
All right, next up. Ooh, I get new Jace. Jace, Reawakened. Nap time's over. 2-mana Planeswalker. The last time we saw a 2-mana Planeswalker, it was Tybalt.
No, it was Ren and 6.
Was it Ren and 6 was after the 2-mana Tybalt? Did I get that backwards? Maybe I just forgot about them. All right. Well, I wonder if I'm going to do as bad a job evaluating this as I did Ren and 6.
Oh, let's see.
So blue gets you a 3 loyalty Planeswalker Jace. It has the static ability, you can't cast this spell during your first, second, or third turn. The same templating as Angel Friend.
Sarah Avenger.
Sarah Avenger. +1, draw a card, then discard a card. +1, you may exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less from your hand. If you do, it becomes plotted. -6, until end of turn. I don't know why I couldn't read that. Until end of turn, whenever you cast a spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. So, downside. This is a Planeswalker that does not protect itself. And normally when you're evaluating a Planeswalker, you want one of the abilities to either kill a creature that's on the board, so immediate board impact, or make a body that would trade for a creature or at least block it and protect it. And this card is lacking that. That being said, it's 2 mana. And that's pretty cool. It's 2 mana and lets you save on mana with the +1 ability. The second one that lets you plot a card. And, looting is always pretty good. Is this card good? Man, not being able to cast it until turn 4 is really awkward, especially with the fact that it's 2 mana. Because a lot of the times in a blue deck, you want to use your early turns if you're not being proactive to set up. Jace, for instance, Prodigy is an example of a 2 mana spell that also lets you loot, presumably without a mock start on like turn 3 or something like that. So this kind of misses that window where you want these abilities. So, is it good? I'm going to say no. I think it's fine. I think it's a little bit antithetical to what you want to do in our format, though, which is use your cheap blue spells in the early game to set up your late game plan. And this doesn't really have a late game plan. This is a setup card. Try it, though. Could be fun.
I don't have a home for this card, but I do want to point out that if you're using this, it should be so that you get the second +1 and the -6 in mind when you're deck building. Like the first ability is the one that we're used to and we like, and it's powerful. We like looting. It says draw a card. But to put this card in your deck, I think you need to be planning to pop off somehow. It might not be Storm, but you're planning to have a huge turn where you -6.
Don't overthink it.
I don't think I did.
I don't think
Okay.
you include this for the alt.
Okay. But like the first two abilities, are you happy enough? Go ahead. Don't overthink it.
Well, I don't entirely know myself because this is entirely new ground for a planeswalker.
It is.
Yes.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to play on the safe side and think this card is probably good. It's closer to good than it is to bad.
Sure.
There are a lot of play patterns where playing this card on turn 4 or above is exactly what you want to do. And often in these decks, you don't really want to tap out early in the first place. Like if we're like a blue X
Sure.
control deck.
Yeah.
Or if you
counter
are
mana,
tapping
yeah.
low, you are doing it for disruptive reasons, right? Like you're hand attacking them or you're, fetching your surveil land or whatever. And being able to kind of pay to, on turn 4, being able to keep up counter magic, play this, and then just tick up and plot like a powerful sorcery speed spell, and then untap and then cast that with all your mana. Like, I think that's interesting enough for me to look into this.
Oh, play a threat and have your counter magic up constantly. Never go shields down. That's interesting. Like even a
Yeah.
3-mana creature like Goyf.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And then also just like looting is fine. Like 2 mana, 4 loyalty. It's annoying. You get to keep up mana to disrupt other things. Players, this card gets a lot of strength from people still not knowing how to play against planeswalkers. People are just so bad at Magic the Gathering the second a planeswalker hits the table, myself included. Like, it's just so difficult for people to be like, I should ignore this. Or, no, I shouldn't ignore this. I should actually get this off the table.
We don't ever rate cards.
No.
Are you calling this like a 6 out of 10?
Well, Serge, we don't ever rate cards here.
So we're going to continue to not rate cards.
I don't
You
know.
said closer to good than bad, but
Yeah.
like it's,
Jace Rate Awakened.
I don't know. It's interesting. It's better than Tybalt.
it's
Not as good as Red and 6.
That's all.
But it is blue.
It does make sense in hard control because it's a planeswalker, so it's going to eventually get you value. And that's kind of the deck that is the most stoked to be like, sweet, I can keep up 5 mana and advance the board on turn 7. That's exactly what I wanted.
But does anybody even play hard control anymore?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
I talked to Stefan Bard just last week.
All right. Fair enough.
That guy's cooking up some of the worst bug decks you've ever heard of.
All right, let's move on.
Maybe this card's good in Seeker Walk.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I like this card.
All right.
Oh, yes. It's me. Seize the Secrets. 2 and a blue for a sorcery. The spell costs 1 less to cast if you committed a crime this turn. And then says draw 2 cards. You know what? Get off your high horse. Divination is not the worst card in the game to cast. But the good news is that this is very often just not divination. It's like, what if divination had Serge? Like Surge?
Oh.
Sorry, I'm not one of those people that misspells your name. I hope you'll understand. Where it's like, hey, did you lightning bolt something? Great, draw 2 cards. Hey, did you cast Duress? Great, draw 2 cards. Did you thought scour them? Or Gataxian probe? Great, pay 2, draw 2. Super underrated like line of text. It's just draw 2 cards when it's attached to something that only costs 2 mana, right? Like Knight's Whisper, vintage playable card.
Yep.
Chart of Course. Great Magic card.
Attacking them isn't a crime, even though it maybe should be. Don't attack other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this is something where if you are pretty heavy on card draw, a lot of cantrips and just like looking for this like, a certain velocity of cards of like constantly churning and finding new things to cast. I'm pretty into this. But it also feels like a card that is going to get out-modded in like a year.
Yeah,
So enjoy it while you have it.
that's fair.
Let's move on. Nelly, you're up.
It's time to talk about Simulacrum Synthesizer from the Big Score. 2 and a blue for an artifact. When this enters the battlefield, scry 2. Okay, 3 mana, scry 2. Whenever another artifact with mana value 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So a construct. So it's a construct factory for 3 mana. It needs you to make other artifacts with mana value 3 or greater. Doesn't say non-token for those of you wanting to use that white 2/4 to like copy your trading post. I see you. Anytime artifacts with mana value 3 or greater enter the battlefield under your control, you don't have to cast them. You could be reanimating them. You're going to be making colorless construct creatures. So I think, the Scry sets you up to get one the turn after. It's 3 mana. I think the blue-white artifact creature players should. They owe it to themselves to play it.
You.
And then I think just the Paradox Edge decks could probably play it too.
Affinity.
Sure, great. Play it in Affinity.
Sully my...
What? Sorry, Affinity.
What should the Affinity...
Wax on instead of wax off? Like, what do you want to do there?
Affinity.
No, what do the Teletubbies do? Have you seen Teletubbies? You're 10 years younger than me.
You have children.
I know, but they're gone now. The Teletubbies are done.
Are they
I
dead?
think your kids are gone. Kids are gone. They're gone
Like
now.
empty nest
Well, they're not in
colony.
this
Oh,
room,
God,
so they
yeah.
might as well.
They're off
no.
living
wow.
with the Teletubbies.
The Teletubbies
Tinky
kidnapped my
Winky's
kids.
their dad now.
Please tell me where the Teletubbies are. They have my kids.
No, I just mean like the Teletubbies should have like some
They
dance
got
move.
TVs on their guts.
They should have some dance move that represents Affinity
They
because
were
of Mirror
not very
Enforcer.
animated.
Yeah, Mirror Enforcer we used to call Teletubby a Yellow Jacket. So,
Yeah.
anyways, this card's pretty solid. It makes constructs. It costs 3 mana. You even get to scry 2 when it hits the battlefield. If you have that white dwarf thing from Ixalan, you know what I'm talking about? That also makes constructs. They just made one.
Dig Site Engineer?
Probably
Or do you
the
mean
4 mana one.
Moonsmithy?
Yeah, If you're Moonsmithy,
Thousand
yeah.
Moonsmithy.
I feel like if you're 1,000 Moonsmithing, you owe it to yourself to shove this into your deck because, yeah,
So, like, I know the swords.
this card's playable.
I know the swords are bad now, but God, when I think of a 3 mana artifact, I can't help but think of the swords.
Jeskai equipment for Serge coming to you
No, we
later
just
this
talked
year.
about this for about an hour.
Oh, all right. But I don't know. Yeah, this card's obviously playable. It's not very complicated. You're gonna put it in some decks that have lots of artifacts. Move on.
Yeah. Next up, we have the Slick Shot Lock Picker. This is a 3 mana 2/3 for 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, the target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost, and then you can plot it for 2 and a blue. So again, plot, spade into 3 mana, set it aside, and then cast it for free on a later turn. This card is totally fine. It's apparently if we had a subtitle for today's episode, it's "Don't Overthink It."
Yeah.
Yeah.
This costs more than Snapcaster. It's garbage. Well,
I mean,
It's-
think about how
it's a
messed
different
up
card.
Snapcaster
Yeah.
exactly.
is.
exactly. Plus, you get 3 toughness instead of 1.
Yeah. I move on.
Yep.
Wheeler.
Okay, great. We are on to Step Between Worlds. 3 blue for a sorcery. Each player may shuffle their hand and graveyard into their library. Each player who does draws 7 cards. Exile Step Between Worlds, and then plot for 4 blue. This is one of the rare instances where the plot cost is more expensive than the actual card itself. The gameplay pattern, the gameplay pattern, that was a very weird way of wording
We did it.
that.
We got there.
We got there. Is that you want to plot this, and then the next turn, when you have all your mana available, you cast it for free, and you get the draw 7. And that part is appealing. Again, if I'm playing this in an Academy deck, I don't care that it's 6 mana to do nothing. Stop it.
That's all I ever
That's
pay
all
6
I do,
mana
yeah.
for.
Yeah, I do that before you even wake up in the morning. I'm paying 6 mana for nothing.
Yep.
My big downside with this card is that it doesn't force your opponent to do so.
To me, it seems like they're going to keep printing thieves if they made it a main. Yeah.
Because one of the best cards to play in Academy with all the draw 7s is Orcish Bowmasters and Hull Breacher. There are even versions that go up to playing both Leovold and Shieldred. That's a great way of killing your opponent, and they get to choose. Miss me with this. I'm not into that. Like the pattern, the expected play pattern of this card is appealing to me, but the fact that they're not forced into doing it is really awkward. Because that's also just, in my mind, that's like a turn 1 kill. is if you just force your opponent to draw 7 random cards.
Yeah. Sometimes
Mox Ruby Ancient Tomb.
Yeah.
Wheel of Fortune them. Yeah.
So yeah,
also, if you say draw 7 and they say no thank you, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, Sail into the West from the Lord of the Rings Commander product also has this, like, they can choose whether or not to opt in. But that's 4 mana and instant speed. So that card kind of does the plot part anyways. Of, like, if you want to effectively draw 7 without paying the mana on that turn, you just, end of your turn, Sail into the West, untap, I now have 8 cards in hand and you're dead. So... kind of cool card, but force my opponents to do bad things. It's 2024. Please.
Yeah, really. It's about time. Thank you. Wheeler.
Shout out to the plot cost being the same as Time Spiral, though. That's kind of cool.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Nelly.
It's time to talk about the first commander card of the day, Thunderclap Drake. 1 out of blue for a 2/1 flying that says instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. They just keep making Goblin Electromancers. And also, 2 and a blue. Sacrifice this. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game.
Seems very relevant to our format.
Super relevant for Canadian Commander here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that second ability we're not going to use, but hey, Storm and or like spells heavy decks that were already jamming Goblin Electromancer or Brawl. Now you have a flying Goblin Electromancer. That's just how good Goblin Electromancer is.
Yeah, you get 3 of them now.
Yeah.
That's wild. I mean, look, tell you what, honor system. If anybody out there playing like old school Ritual Storm has to sacrifice this card to replay it to up their storm count to lethal, let us know. Let us know.
Love it.
That's a story.
All right, next up, we have the Visage Bandit. This is a 4-mana 2/2 shapeshifter rogue for 3 and a blue. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, except it's a shapeshifter rogue in addition to its other types, and its plot cost is 2 and a blue. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is a 4-mana clone. But what you're missing is Pod now has a 4-mana clone. And that's very significant because for the birthing pod chains, sometimes if you're trying to do like, if you have a Pestermite, you're trying to untap your stuff, you can go up and down your pod chains and bring in this 4-drop and give it a different number, which is very interesting and very significant. You're looking at me like I'm saying something weird.
You just said now. Like,
well, sorry, they had...
Clone is a 4-mana clone from beta.
Oh, see, they
Sir,
also had the
Phyrexian Metamorph they actually played.
Okay.
What Serge meant when he ignored Undercover Operative, Sakashima the Imposter.
Oh God, we're doing the list.
Sakashima.
Cunning.
Spark Double.
Yeah, the 4-mana one from Ixalan.
God, thank God they've never had a
Amaket,
4-mana clone
Vizier of
before.
Many Faces.
No,
All
that
right.
one's good too, but no, I'm trying to think of the one with the fetch lands. KTK. Cons. The cons one that
Clever
does
Imposter.
anything. Clever
I
Imposter.
was so
Or Impersonator.
confident for a
Impersonator.
second there. Keep going, Wheeler.
Well, there's Shifty Doppelganger as well. Vesuvian Doppelganger.
Like, we don't actually have enough time because there's literally 100 4-mana clones.
I'm just reciting one of my commander decks.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly. Yeah, you are too.
What Serge was trying to say that I told him earlier before going live was that it's nice that there is a 4-mana clone. It's good that pod lists and Seeker Walk lists have a 4-mana clone. Because some lists played Phyrexian Metamorph, which is a totally fine card. Yeah. But you kind of want one. It just makes certain pod chains easier if you have to like find yourself like a Restoration Angel to get things going. Or you just invest in your future. A thing that I've talked about on a couple of these set reviews that is super important. Like paying the plot on this in your Mana Accelerant deck and then just having a turn where you pop the hell off. Like, that's sick.
Yeah, no,
that's great.
I like not podding for this, but drawing it in your pod deck and then casting it before you start podding.
Yeah.
Sweet.
If
but
you
it
need,
does.
If you need me, I'm going to go walk into
Yeah.
the ocean.
Oh, no.
No, you're fine. You're
I
fine.
just I hyperfixated on one part and forgot everything.
While
It'll
you're
be time
there,
to dunk on me next.
Yeah. While you're there, do you mind grabbing my copy of Undercover Operative, a 4-mana clone? There's no, that's not what the
we
card
can
is.
move on. Why
Yeah,
don't
we
you
can
talk
move
about the
on.
next card?
Sure, why not?
Whose turn is
World
it?
Walker Helm from the big score. 2 and a blue for an artifact. If you would create one or more artifact tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional map token. Then pay 1 and a blue, tap, create a token that's a copy of target artifact token you control. So this is, again, a artifact that doesn't really do anything when you play it. But if you start creating artifact tokens, such as Constructs, such as just treasure, clues, servos, thopters, whatever, you're going to start getting additional artifacts. And that's pretty cool. Not to mention, if you have Constructs, you get to just make more Constructs with this. And I think it was the Brothers War Commander, or the Brothers War Set Review podcast, where I was like, I think one of the best things you can do in Canadian Highlander is just make as many Constructs as possible. And I still kind of stand by that. It's a great thing to do. Whether or not you need this card in that process is a different story. I'm not as excited for this card as I am for something like Forensic Gadgeteer from MKM that made clue tokens and did something else.
It makes your activate abilities cheaper. Yeah.
But this isn't embarrassing. Like, you could play this card if you really want to go all in on the heavy artifact generation.
Yeah, map tokens are kind of...
They're really good when you don't think of them like a mechanic.
Okay.
Like, if you think of them as like a thing that's exclusive to like Sentinel of the Lost City or whatever.
Yeah.
I forget what its name is. The 3-mana 3/4.
Sentinel Velocity.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
The
you
3/4
nailed
for
that.
3.
Yeah. When you think of it
Vigilance.
as just like a thing that's only made by that card, or Get Lost, they kind of rule.
Sure.
But then in the context of like, why do I need all these map tokens?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do with this? Make my giant vanilla creature that much bigger?
No, you're going to put cards in your graveyard and draw lands. That's what you're doing with them. It's great. This card does even a little bit too much nothing for me off the rip. But yeah, maybe if there's enough Construct cards in your deck, it's fine. Let's talk now.
We're moving on to black. That's you, Nelly.
Hooray! That was the last blue card. Let's talk about Caustic Bronco. Oh, this one's fun. 1 and a black for a 2/2 snake horse mount. Whenever Caustic Bronco attacks, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. You lose life equal to that card's mana value, of course. If Caustic Bronco isn't saddled, oh wait, there's more. Otherwise, each opponent loses that much life. That's right. You get to Dark Confident them. You keep the card, but they lose the life off of your Gurmag Angler. Isn't that incredible? And it has Saddle 3. So it's a 2/2 with Saddle 3. I think that was the same as our blue 2/2. Is also Saddle 3. Do you remember from the
new
Salamander?
Scout
A
Saddle.
lot of them feel like they have saddle 3. I've seen one with saddle 1 and one with saddle 4, but 3 seems to be that sweet spot.
Right. So, really interesting card. I don't know if it's playable, unfortunately. Like, Bobs they've been in a tough spot for a long time, making like Bobs that are still worth playing when they're new and they're not actual Bob. I don't know. It doesn't have to damage the opponent. It just has to attack.
I am shocked that you're low on this card.
So-
Nelson, I'll play every 2 mana.
You like Thieving Varmint over this?
Wait, don't spoil it. Thieving Varmint has Death Touch. I'll probably try it. The thing about this card is, and my evaluation on cheap black creatures is only from the deck with all the cheap black creatures. And this one, in order to get your opponent, you have to saddle 3, and then it's a 2/2 for 2.
You wouldn't play Dark Confidant in that deck?
I know I do play Dark Confidant in that deck. It's just Dark Confidant doesn't need to attack to get its ability. So like he does attack a lot in my deck. It's fine. I'll try it. I'm gonna play it. Like I'm gonna sleeve it up. I'm gonna attack with it. Maybe I'm gonna turn my tone around and be like, I'm so glad I didn't wait to play Caustic Bronco because I am gonna. It's definitely piqued my curiosity. I just feel like this is a card that we're gonna forget about. I think this is a card that's going to be like, well, yeah, you can make your opponent lose life if you saddle 3. But in the deck that I'm excited to play with it, you generally need to attack with those creatures that we're saddling. And it's going to be 2 creatures saddling for my deck.
You know what, Nelly? It's okay. I thought Ren and 6 was bad.
Are you two both going to play this Snake Horse?
Well, I don't play bad decks. Like
No.
this, but
Yeah, I don't play any decks
actually,
that I'd
that's
ever
not
go
true.
into.
I've played mono blue.
Yeah, we had the mirror match.
Yeah.
You're the premier mono black aggro format of the pilot.
This thing's a 2-mana 2/2 that draws you cards.
Yeah,
And does so before damage. It just has to attack. And the play pattern of like attack, kill your thing, or kill your thing so you can't block attack. That's pretty in line with what black does. But even if you just have a clean attack, you can like I don't know, pre-combat play your Rotting Reggie and immediately Rotting Reggie saddle up the Caustic Bronco and slam. Like, I don't give a shit if I'm losing life to this. I'll tell you that.
How long before they figure out if I'm not excited about the best black aggro cards in the format, they'll talk them up for me.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, Serge is about to talk about the best mono black aggro card in this.
We're gonna have to do our first ever bleep in a North 100. We've never
That's
sworn on
not
the show
true.
before.
That's not true. And you think we're going to censor it? They didn't censor it the last time.
James 5430. If we get a batted, please.
Nope.
All right, next up, we have the Forsaken Miner. This is a 1-mana 2/2 skeleton rogue. It cannot block. Whenever you commit a crime, you may pay a black. If you do, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, although it can't block, it doesn't enter play tapped. So it can crew. It can saddle. I don't really know any other opportunities of things where you care about it being untapped. It's significant.
It can convoke.
It can convoke. Yeah. Also, it has the ability to come back under very, very easy circumstances, and there's a long, storied history of recurring black threats. If only it was a zombie, it'd be best friends with Gravecrawler. Skeleton Rogue's a little bit awkward, but still, like a 1-mana 2/2 with realistically no downside. You don't really ever block as the green the black aggressive deck. I was going to say green black aggressive deck, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, green is one of the colors you might want to pair with this sort of card. Like, I could see it going into black mold. This one's quite exciting.
I do think the fact that it's not a 2/1 is potentially a downside, because one of the great things with a lot of those cards is to be able to skull clamp them and recur it over and over as a little bit of an engine. You're looking at me like I'm crazy, Wheeler?
Well, I just skull clamp it and attack. What has happened to you two? You're so greedy. Just play the cards. Read the words. Turn them sideways. Go back to your roots.
No, this one's fantastic.
Yeah.
This
I'm
is
not
obviously
like
very good.
No, I know, but just the thought of
you
like,
don't think
it's
it'd
a
be better if a 2/1?
No. I like being able to attack with this into their mana dorks and their tokens.
That's true. It doesn't trade with Llanowar Elf. All right,
the
that's fair.
second toughness is bad. Aggro Bob is no good.
I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Man, yeah, if Caustic Bronco is a 2/1, though, Nelly'd been all over that.
My God.
All right, move on. Nelly.
This
Not
one's
Nelly.
fantastic.
Wheeler, you're up.
Jisa the Hellraiser. 3 black for a 4/4 legendary human warlock with ward 2 and pay 2 life.
Ward, get me a sandwich.
Nice Caracas, idiot. Skeletons and zombies you control get +1/+1 and have menace. Whenever you commit a crime, create 2 tapped 2/2 blue-black zombie rogue tokens. This ability triggers only once each turn. So this is a 4-mana creature. Technically does not have an ETB.
5, right?
5-mana
5-mana
creature.
creature.
Technically does not have an ETB. But it has Caracas insurance, which is pretty sick. And if you're a deck that has a bunch of zombies, such as zombies, then you kind of have an ETB of, I'm going to buff my entire team and give them menace, which is a messed up ability.
Yeah,
that
menace
pushes
is
so
the
much
menace.
damage.
Menace is so good.
The Menace is the game. The
Menace
big-
is really having its moment lately. Like, Menace has been around for a long time, but like, I don't know. Menace is just on better creatures now or something.
I think they also evaluated how many board stalls people were getting into, and were like, we need to find ways to like push damage or disincentivize the Cold War. Sorry, yes, Wheeler.
Well, menace gets a lot better as cards get cheaper and more efficient, so that you can play a cheap spell to remove one of their permanents to ensure that your menace creature gets through. Or if you want to get tricky, attack with a menace creature, use a cheap spell to kill one of the things on a double block.
Yeah.
Yeah. And committing crimes, that's pretty easy for a black X deck to do, where you're going to have a bunch of cards that target their graveyard or target their hand or target their creatures. And when you do that, you
Or
make
target their lands.
Target their lands. Wasteland your thing, makes 6 power with menace. Christ. This is... I almost started off this review by insulting it and saying this was a Jeremy White card. But I think this is actually much better than that. Like, it's as far as like 5-mana mythic rare, that's like, of course it's going to win the game.
I don't know quite.
It's a 5-mana mythic.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm defending Jeremy White here.
No. He's moved on.
I don't know what I'm doing about it. Yeah.
What I mean is that, like, you look at it and it's like, Yeah, I guess if this card hits play and you untap with it, you're going to win the game. It's a 5 mana mythic rare with 3 sections of text.
Right.
But it actually just plays out a lot better even if somebody manages to get rid of it on their turn, right? You get an immediate impact. You might just immediately commit some crimes. The zombies don't go away. Yeah, this card rules. Big fan. In exactly one deck.
Yeah. Scary Gisa, though. Yeah.
Next up.
Let's talk about Insatiable Avarice. It's 1 black with Spree, so not really 1 black. A sorcery with 2 modes. You can choose one or both. For 2 generic, you search your library for a card, then shuffle that card and put that on top. So a 3 mana Vampiric Tutor effect. Or for black, target player draws 3 cards and loses 3 life. Now, I love that. 3 mana for a Sign in Blood for 3 is right up my alley. However, the tutor mode is probably, more important in our format generally. This is an interesting one. So all the Spree cards can be tutored up with Spellseeker, or your Transmute for 1 cards if that matters. This can get any card and then it puts it on top. And for 5 mana total, you can get that card and 2 other ones into your hand. I'm overall not really that hot on this card. I'm excited to throw it into mono black aggro to have a way to Sign and Blood them to death from 3 instead of from 2 / draw myself 3 cards. And beyond that, I don't know that it's like making the cut into like Storm and Garbage Platter and heavy tutor decks. So I'm curious if either of you have any other thoughts or homes for this card. Like I will play it in mono black aggro. Just any deck with Sheoldred. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
this reads target player loses 9 life with Sheoldred.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Are all these
hot.
Sheoldred decks already playing Sign in Blood too? Like this Sign in Blood just having a moment?
No, but it's worth mentioning there is like a Sultai control list that plays like Time Twister.
Right.
And
Yeah.
can play
Doing that in
some of
Cube
the
is
other
pretty fun.
Yeah, can play some of the other draw 7s that plays with Bowmaster, Sheoldred, etc. All
Right.
that stuff. And so in that deck, if you have a Sheoldred out, or even like an Orcish Bowmasters, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna deal you. I mean, with Bowmasters, God, that's also deal 9.
6. Well, right. It's 3 plus 3 from the Bowmaster plus a 3/3, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you get +3 on the
Yeah.
creature. They lose 3 life and 3 damage for the Bowmaster. So that's 9 damage.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty big. And
I
then
love
in
that
that
we're evaluating this as a burn spell.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like
They're like, oh, we've come so far since bump in the night.
well, the number one thing Magic players do is they undervalue flexibility. Serge.
Okay. And what's the other thing they do?
They think that Caustic Bronco is not good enough, and that Forsaken Miner
said I was
should
gonna
have
play it.
1 toughness.
I said I was gonna play it.
All right. Shall we move on?
So do play this in your Sheoldred and aggro decks, and don't play it in your tutor decks. Great.
Love
Let's
it.
move on.
Next up, we have the Lively Dirge. This is another Spree card. So 1 and a black sorcery. +1. Search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, and then shuffle. So 3 mana, Entombment, sorcery speed. Or +2, return up to 2 target cards, creature cards, with total mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So 5 mana, entomb a creature, reanimate that creature, which is kind of spicy, like Sheoldred, or Questing Beast, or 2 other smaller ones like that. And the flexibility that this offers, this might seem weird. This is one of my favorite cards in the set. I actually really like this. And this is probably a wrong evaluation, but I'm thinking of this like Savine's Reclamation in black. Like it hits a lot, at least in the types of decks that I like to make. Like if you have 2 creatures that are both 2 CMC, like it's part of a combo that can bring them back. Like you could tutor for 1, bring another one back. If you're looking for like, Samwise or something like that, you can do some pretty busted stuff with this. I don't know. It's also 4 or 5 mana, but I like it a lot. I like it a lot.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Let's move on, Wheeler.
Pitiless Carnage. 3 in the black for a sorcery. Sacrifice any number of permanents you control, then draw that many cards. Plot for 1 black. I am so excited to plot this card and then immediately cast it, sacrificing everything I own and playing Faith's Reward or Second Sunrise
You got to balance first.
or Balance.
Well, no, then you'll discard your cards. You got to give your balance instant speed. So
we get it
All
to-
right, hold on,
we
hold
sacrifice
on, yeah.
everything except
it
for
doesn't help.
Teferi 3.
yeah, exactly.
There was a Friday night paper fight that we recorded where I built the Jacuzzi on Commission, or Yawgmoth's Jacuzzi, the like fast bond Gravestorm, but not Gravestorm kind of deck that looked to do exactly this. But it accomplished that through a variety of cards. And this is one single card that can accomplish that, which is pretty cool.
Very
Big fan.
important question. Does it go in Aristocrats? No. All right.
No.
Just figured we'd get ahead of the...
Yep. Aristocrats is playing well, this card is strong, but it is very specific at what it's doing. Aristocrats plays a lot of bad cards that are made terrifying by cheaper, stronger, more flexible cards than this one. This one just kind of commits to the bit.
Sure.
Yeah, which is not a bad thing, but, not a Kratz card. Not needed for Kratz.
All right, Nelly, you're up.
It's time to talk about Servant of the Stinger. 1 and a black for a 1/3 human warlock with Death Touch. And whenever Servant of the Stinger deals combat damage to a player, if you've committed a crime this turn, you may sacrifice Servant of the Stinger. If you do, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Woo! We're hot off of the MKM Skeleton Saga, and we're back with another Demonic Tutor on legs.
So-
this one's great at blocking. I'm excited about it.
Wheeler loves this. I think this is dumb. I'm really curious to hear your opinion.
I think you're dumb.
Up top,
Sorry.
It's because I forgot about all the 4-mana clones, isn't it?
James just put on sunglasses and picked up a skateboard.
No, it's just because my partner's favorite joke is the turnaround. Like, I think that's dumb. I think you're dumb. Like, that's all. That's the only reason I did. No, I really like these cards because I'm a fan of taking medium plays from the potentially broken plays, right? Like, this isn't going to always connect. You're not always going to have committed a crime when you deal damage to them, or like they're only going to block if you have committed a crime already. Like you'll be tapped out going into combat, so they'll know you can't commit a crime before hitting them or whatever. Like, there's all kinds of scenarios where it's a 2-mana 1/3 Death Touch and that's all you get for the whole game. But I'm just comfortable with that floor, and to continue the don't overthink it thing. It's like, there'll even be some weird turns probably where you hit them for 1 with your Death Touch creature after you have committed a crime, and then don't sacrifice it.
That's the thing. I'm accusing you two of overthinking it. In what world are you playing a 2-mana 1/3 with Death Touch?
What do you mean? How are they ever blocking this? And if they are, how are they ever trading profitably? You're overthinking whether or not we're overthinking this.
It's not just a 1/3 with Death Touch. Like, it is like the Abyss, right? Like, you are threatening to go and you're going to Thoughtseize them, right? And then you're going to attack. And if they don't trade, then you're going to go get
I'm going
Shieldred.
to kill your blocker, then I'm going to attack you, and I've committed a crime, and then I'm going to tutor the best card in my deck, and I'm going to play that card. All right? I might even find a copy of Luris and then start doing this every turn.
Yeah, you sacrifice your Servant of the Stinger so you can go get your case of the Stolen Skeleton or whatever.
I'll play this in Rakdos mid-range. I'll play this card. I'll play the hell out of this card. You kidding me? It's got Death Touch. This game is all board-based.
It's fair, Serge, but it's just good enough, basically.
How good is this card at getting the initiative?
It's not like Scream and Busted, but it's good enough. It's good at getting the
I
initiative.
think it's pretty good.
It's also only 2 mana.
It's a 1/3.
We could put it in Doran for you if you want. We could get some sort of Abzan toughness deck together.
Let's move on.
All right.
I've got a very important question. Who shot the sheriff?
I think it
You
was
did, right?
Jana Hellspur Thunderslinger.
Now, where's that deputy? All right, shoot the sheriff is a 2-mana instant for 1 and a black. Destroy target non-outlaw creature. An outlaw is any creature that is an assassin, a mercenary, a pirate, a rogue, or a warlock. Everything else is fair game. So,
Incredible reminder
in
text.
the original Innistrad, We had the black removal spell, the non-spirit werewolf vampire skeleton or something like that.
Zombie werewolf vampire.
Zombie
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Victim of night.
Victim of night. Yeah, definitely no zombies, no werewolves.
Yeah. Now, Wheeler and I were trying to think of what are the most important creatures in our format that this doesn't kill. This doesn't
That's fair.
kill Ragavan.
Yep, that's the first one that came to my mind.
This
too.
doesn't kill Brazen Borrower. And those are probably the two biggest ones. There's some other high hits.
Fairy Mastermind, Mercurial Spelldancer, Stalactite Stalker, Dothy Voidwalker.
A bunch of Planeswalker tokens are rogues, pirates, and assassins, like the ones Vraska's making. We don't see those. We don't see those ones as often, but we did for a while there. You saw 6 mana Vraska kind of. They are. They're mercenaries or rogues or assassins.
All
Vraska
the Vraska
definitely
ones.
makes assassins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking
So,
about insects.
The point
okay,
here
fair
is that this is not always going to be live. And I'm of the opinion that there are better removal spells that are almost always live or cheaper or less restrictive and stuff like that. And look, we all cut Go for the Throat. We all stopped playing Go for the Throat probably in like 2019 is what I'm going to say. Wheeler's probably still playing it. I see that.
Well, I just mean you're thinking like a 3-color deck.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah. Which may be the real question. The real thing is no decks are, sorry, how do I want to word this?
It only goes in mono black.
It isn't that a lot of decks are cutting Go for the Throat because it's bad compared to the other black removal spells. It's that so many decks are 3-color or more now, and you get to dip into the better removal spells that are brought to you by your
The
supporting
second color,
colors, or what multicolored cards.
Yeah.
right?
Also, those card structures just beating people to death, and you can't whiff on that.
Yeah, and like I think this card is fine if you are like a 2-color or like monocolor deck that just needs like one more piece of removal that will kill Murktide Regent, it'll kill Spellseeker,
Oracle.
and it will kill Thoracle. Might not have the outcome you're hoping for. And will kill, I don't know, like Auriok Salvagers. Like it kills the combo creatures and it kills Murktide Regent. And it kills all the initiative creatures, which is pretty.
All of them?
I think so, because
What about
most
the
of them
black
are.
one?
Is
Oh,
Ravenloft?
Raven?
That's an
Ravenloft
assassin.
Ravenloft,
isn't it?
I think it's either
Ravenloft
assassin or
Adventure?
rogue, right?
That's
But
not
the
even
the giant's not a pirate,
Ravenloft Adventure is not even the good black one.
that's true. The red
it's not?
the red 5/3 trample I don't think is a mercenary or a rogue. I think it's
it
just
might
a
be
warrior.
mercenary, actually.
That's Caves of Chaos.
Caves of Chaos is a warrior,
Ravenloft
right?
Adventure is a rogue and an assassin.
Okay, all right.
Double whiff.
It's no.
But it kills the
passageway.
tiefling.
Alright.
Oh wait, does it kill the tiefling or is the tiefling warlock?
Because I do think Caves of Koilos is a mercenary. I do think that.
You
Okay.
think Caves of Chaos Adventure is a mercenary?
I think so.
No, I think it's a warrior.
Okay. How much money do you want to put on this?
Coffee. I'll bet you
Welcome to
coffee.
North
Deal.
100
It's a barbarian.
live gambling podcast.
Just a barbarian? Human barbarian?
Human barbarian.
I thought it was a human mercenary.
Passageway Seer.
It's a
Tiefling Warlock.
It is a
All right,
warlock.
so this doesn't kill the black initiative creatures.
Doesn't kill the black initiative creatures. unfortunately.
Eric Hawker's Sneak might be a rogue too.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, I owe Wheeler a coffee, and we're gonna move on. Actually, I'm gonna just pass this one to Nelly.
Okay, great. I want to talk about Thieving Varmint from Commander. It's 1 and a black for a 2/1 creature varmint with Death Touch and Lifelink. If it has 2 power and Death Touch and Lifelink for 2 mana, I'm kind of in. This is only like the second time they've given that to us, as far as I know. If you have other squirreled away 2 power, 2 mana Death Touch Lifelink creatures, hit me up in the comments, because as far as I know, the good one costs black and has 3 toughness. But this one is close, so I will probably be jamming it. It does have another ability that's going to come up sometimes. Tap, pay 1 life, add 2 mana of any one color, but spend this mana only to cast spells you don't own. So I only play Gaunty sometimes that does this. Next to in positions I would play this card for Canadian Highlander. I'm mostly all about that 2/1 Death Touch Lifelink. I'm just excited for that. I like that 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch Lifelink. I don't always play it, but I play it sometimes.
The vampire. The Dire Moon. Or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Goes in black-white vampires usually.
All right. Now we're gonna pass to Wheeler for the next card.
As the premier mono black and vampire pilot of the format, I Oh, you want me to talk about Tiny Bones,
Yeah.
the pickpocket? 1 black for a 1/1 skeleton rogue. It's a legendary creature with Death Touch. Whenever Tiny Bones deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target non-land permanent card from that player's graveyard, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell.
Well. You mean a spell that you don't own that you get to cast? That you could cast off of Thieving Varmint? Anyways, continue.
Oh my god. My kingdom for my first opponent on a Monday night to go Tiny Bones into Thieving Varmint as I look at my copy of Fire Ice. Just like, oh, it's all right.
It is a pyrokinesis world
yeah.
out there. That's fair.
Yeah,
That's
pyrokinesis
fair.
and Furies running around everywhere.
Well, you're
that's
saying a
fair.
second toughness is good?
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Even if you can skull clamp this one. I actually don't hate this card.
No, this card's exciting.
Yeah, 1 mana. So I'm on Nelson's side in that I think cheap Death Touch creatures are really good. Like, that's annoying. How do you ever attack into this? I feel if my opponent played this and I'm on like mono green, I feel like I've lost.
You got to find your QB.
I gotta get through
get
this
through
in
it,
some
yeah.
way. And so it's a little it's low investment to play. Obviously pretty difficult to block. Trades very well. It's in the color of kill everything that you play or hand attack you, and that tends to feed into its ability quite nicely. I don't think it's the, be all end all, but if I'm adding 2 new 1-drops from this set to my mono black aggro deck, like, I'm happy. This is going to be one of them.
Yeah, this and the minor. Pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the final card we are going to talk about today is Vadmir New Blood. This is a 2-mana 2/2 legendary vampire rogue for 1 and a black. Whenever you commit a crime, put a +1/+1 counter on Vadmir. This ability triggers only once each turn. And then, as long as Vadmir has 4 or more +1/+1 counters, it gains Menace and Lifelink. This is just an extremely straightforward 2-mana vampire growth threat.
Mm-hmm.
You probably want to play it in vampires.
As the premier vampires pilot of the format,
That's actually true. You rolled over me with vampires.
you say that we're about to get a bullet in the head from Angel.
Yeah, like I
We do have a dedicated vampire.
not going
pilot in
anywhere near this
format.
one. Yeah.
But Vampires is a deck that can commit quite a few crimes on both players' turns as well.
Yeah.
And also just has a collection. Some of the best cards in that deck put 1/1 counters on your vampires.
Yeah.
Cordial
there's that
Vampire
Insolent- or
and
Indulgent
Sorin.
Aristocrat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cordial Vampire was
Cordial
a problem.
Vampire.
Yeah,
I mean, speaking of vampires too, the last standard was won by vampires as well. No, it wasn't standard.
Pioneer.
Pioneer was won
that's
by
right.
vampires too. 3-mana Sorin is like $8 million.
Yeah, that
now.
3-mana Sorin is not a real Magic card. It's, it's kind of wild. So yeah, this card fits into like you said, it's a vampire with upside, but it's relevant that these 2 upsides are also just what vampires is already doing.
Yep.
Where some of the previous 2-mana vampires that we've talked about, where it's like, congratulate, like if the Varmint were a vampire, I'd be playing it.
Oh my god, yeah.
Sure.
Because
That
it's just a
deck is-
2-mana vampire with upside.
It's starved for 2-drops. That deck really.
It's gotten better since
Yeah.
then.
It's gotten a lot better
yeah.
for sure.
But it
started off that
This
way,
is
yeah.
this is huge for that deck.
It really wants to shed its blood artists, is basically the way
Yeah.
that I see it.
Yeah.
And cards like this will help.
All right, let's call it there for this particular episode. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. A reminder, again, that this set is not exhaustive. If there's any cards that you think we missed in white, blue, and black, please let us know. Let us know in the comments down below. We'd love to catch up and see how they're all going. Now, a little treat. This set is kind of stacked, and this is likely going to be a 3-parter. So we're gonna have to be cutting this up. So look forward to 2 more episodes in the future with some combinations of colors therein. We'll have to take a look at how many cards fit everywhere. Hopefully we can deliver it in Wooburg order. But if it's out of order, we didn't miss anything.
We didn't
Just pay
forget
attention.
it.
Man,
Please, I'm begging
we
you.
did like one set review where we're like, hey, we're gonna put green somewhere else, and everybody got really confused and the comments were a giant mess. So just know that might happen.
You didn't skip over a color for some reason.
Yeah. Did they forget that green exists?
I think they forgot Green exists.
Do they know there are green cards?
They skipped over green and they're not going back.
A reminder that everything we do, including skipping the color green, is brought to you by you with your support over the Patreon over at patreon.com/LoneyReadyRun. I've been Serge, joined by Nelly,
I don't really think Serge is dumb.
a Wheeler.
Thank you for having me. I think thieving varmint is bad.
We got James on tech. You're beautiful, and we will see you in part 2. Bye-bye.